Apparently. Hi, Councillor Kennedy. Oh, you're muted.
Yep. Hi. Sorry. Nope, I'm good.
There you go.
No, thanks for today. Thanks.
No problem.
Hi, Doug. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council, the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 o'clock on March 6, 2024 in the Council Chambers at the Municipal Administration Office. We begin with roll call. Deputy Mayor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Kennedy.
Present.
Councillor Pranger.
Present.
Councillor Steinoff Gray. Councillor Stewart.
Present.
Also like to acknowledge that our one councillor is attending via Zoom, and we have a number of staff and members of the public in the gallery this evening. Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. As we are here to talk about the legacy of land and the shores of Lake Huron, it is only fitting that we begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathering on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewa of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewa of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and appreciate the contributions that Indigenous people have made, both in caring for these lands and in strengthening and shaping this community. As a public service organization, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture and are committed to actions that move us on a journey towards truth, healing, and reconciliation.
We have one motion as an amendment to the agenda. I need a mover and seconder that council approve the following deletion. Item 51C, Station Beach Boardwalk Design Parks and Facility 2024-03, moved by councilors Kavanaugh and Hinchberger. Just as a note, the presenter is ill, as was shared via email, and this item will appear on next week's council agenda. Any more discussion? All in favor? That's carried, so deleted. I'd like to remind any councillor to disclose the pecuniary interest now, or as it happens during the meeting and the general nature thereof. We need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held February 12, 2024 and February 14, 2024 be adopted as printed. Councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. Any discussion? All in favor? Those are carried. Moving into matters for discussion and direction. This evening we have the report from our Financial Services Director regarding the Bruce Telecom Legacy Fund investment policy. So we need a mover and seconder that the council consider the following recommendations at the March 27th, 2024 meeting. The council approves the attached Bruce Telecom Legacy Fund policy, and that one, investment staff be leveraged for the optimal delivery and management of the Bruce Telecom Legacy Fund, and further that council form a Legacy Fund Advisory Committee consisting of the Mayor, Treasurer, and CAO. Moved by councillors Hinchberger and Blackwell. And I would ask our Director of Financial Services, Roxanna Bauman, to lead us off in our discussion, please. Thank you.
Okay, through you, Chair. So in October 2023, Council approved the sale of Bruce Telecom for a purchase price of approximately $32 million, less any adjustments and transaction expenses. The transaction is expected to close later this month. At the October 25th Council meeting, Council approved the creation of a legacy fund that would hold the proceeds from the sale of BT Holdings in perpetuity and directed staff to provide the framework for the legacy fund. The intention of the Legacy Fund is that it will be used for the benefit of the community and as ongoing recognition of the community benefit that Bruce Telecom has provided. Preserving the proceeds from the sale indefinitely provides an opportunity to put the municipality on a strong financial footing for generations to come. The policy includes an investment strategy that incorporates an asset mix with minimum and maximum targets surrounding cash holdings, equities, and fixed income investments. The policy also includes a transition plan by investing the proceeds in a phased-in approach over an 18-month period. Initially, 25 to 50% of the capital will be invested in GICs and high-interest savings account, and this will gradually be phased to bonds and equities. The policy also sets out framework for a future liabilities allowance. The share purchase agreement includes indemnification provisions relating to liabilities and obligations that may arise from the transaction. External legal counsel has advised the municipality to set aside approximately $7 million for a period of at least 2 years following closing. Under the policy's transition plan, this allowance will be held in high-interest savings accounts and GIC accounts, which are highly liquid and accessible in the event that funds are required. The policy also establishes acceptable uses of the investment earnings of the Legacy Fund. This includes contributions towards the cost of major assets and infrastructure that benefit the municipality. The investment earnings can be accumulated over multiple years to build up sufficient funds over time, and there is no requirement to use the earnings on an annual basis. The policy was drafted to provide some flexibility in that regard. Some legacy fund policies do not contemplate an initial transfer of investment earnings for several years, allowing the fund to gradually build over time. For Kincardine, the policy reflects Council's decision to use $250,000 in proceeds during the 2024 budget process to reduce the tax-supported operating budget. The next transfer for consideration has been set at $500,000, which reflects the amount of the annual dividend that has been distributed by Bruce Telecom historically as per the shareholder declaration. An annual index of 2% will be applied annually for all subsequent transfers. The policy does not allow a transfer of investment earnings if the transfer causes the value in the legacy fund to fall below the original capital investment amount. All transfers of investment earnings must be approved by council resolution. The staff report recommends that the investments held in the legacy fund be invested with One Investment. Currently, 40% of Ontario municipalities invest through One Investment, and they also offer advisory services, which will allow Kincardine to access advice from both a municipal finance expert and an investment expert, and provide guidance on the appropriate portfolio structure. One Investment has reviewed this draft policy and has provided recommendations as well, and these have been incorporated into the draft policy that is being presented today. Participating in One Investment, which Kincardine currently does with its other investments, will allow us to access a range of investment products that provide diversity and flexibility. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Jason Hagan and Keith Taylor from One Investment, and they have a presentation for council.
Jason, welcome this evening. We're pleased that you and Keith are here to give us some information regarding One Investments, and we look forward to your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council members, and thank you, Roxana. Again, today we'll talk just very briefly about, I didn't wait for the delay. Hold on a sec. There we go. We'll talk very quickly about the One Investment program and some considerations about legacy policies with One Investment. As Roxana noted, I'm Jason Hagan, Program Manager with One Investment and LAS and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And with me is Keith Taylor, our Chief Investment Officer. So we'll touch just quickly today on investing under the Municipal Act, investment options, and then a bit about legacy funds, as I said. So under the Municipal Act, municipal responsibilities and allowances related to investments are fairly well laid out. You can invest under a legal list, which is a regulation under the Municipal Act that says what a municipality can invest in. If it's not listed, you can't invest in it. One Investment is listed as an option for Canadian equities and longer-term corporate bonds under the eligible investment regulation. On the other side, a municipality can choose to become a prudent investor under the Municipal Act, which has some more responsibilities and accountabilities with it, but allows you a broader investment portfolio. I won't touch on that much today, more on the legal list, but just to let folks know that it is an available option. Under the legal list approach, as I said, under the Municipal Act, the management of investments is under the care and control of the treasurer. It's up to the municipality to ensure their compliance with the legislation, and there are limited investment choices available, and predominantly they're Canadian investment choices. As I noted, Canadian corporate bonds greater than 5 years and Canadian equities are also available to a municipality, but through the One Investment program itself. On the other side of the scenario, as I said, just to give you a sense of the other option, which may be of interest to the municipality down the road, is a prudent investor option. And the visual here describes that the legal list is a fairly constrained bucket. The prudent investor is effectively the world is at your fingertips, options and opportunities. It allows municipalities to access investment products that are broader than that eligible investment regulation. But to engage in that, the municipality has to make bigger choices about having an investment board or participating in a joint investment board and giving up the care and control of their finances to that board for monies that are not required immediately. If that's ever of interest, One Investment does have an opportunity for that as well. But more focused today, as I said, just to give you guys some comfort about what Roxana was mentioning about One Investment supporting the municipality with your reserves and your investments, and then also this legacy fund. One Investment is a not-for-profit organization. It's dedicated to investments for Ontario municipalities and the very focused broader public sector. We manage almost $3.2 billion for municipalities, and that comes through high-interest savings accounts, our legal list investment options, and through the Prudent Investor program I mentioned. We've been doing this a long time. We've been around since 1993, and we're owned by two organizations, Local Authority Services, or LAS, which is the business arm of AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, And we're jointly owned by CHUMS, which is the business arm of the Municipal Finance Officers Association. So we're a not-for-profit owned by not-for-profits. Oversights for our work is provided by municipalities and industry experts, and I'll point that out in a moment. And as Roxana noted, 40% of municipalities currently invest in one or more of the One Investment Program opportunities. Question we often get is, are we too big or too small to take advantage? You guys are right in the sweet spot. Every municipality, in terms of population demographics, we have exposure through One Investment to all population types. You guys fall right in the middle. There's 67 municipalities in the 5,000 to 25,000 population category that leverage the program, and they reflect a significant amount of the assets invested with One. And at the bottom is a note that Kincardine already invests in One Investment with our bonds and corporate bond portfolios, as well as our high interest savings account. So what are the advantages or the benefits of leveraging an initiative like One Investment? It's quite frankly, it's intended to make your municipal treasurer's life a little easier. Professional portfolio management, which we take care of. Investment diversification. Just pick where you want to be. Talk to our chief investment officer. Figure out what the need is, and we can help meet it. Investment flexibility and liquidity. Nothing's locked in. There's good and bad times to make changes, but nothing is locked in. Monthly performance reporting for the investments. Investment oversight by, as I said, both municipalities and peers and industry experts. And I highlight this because we guarantee regulatory compliance. So any investment with One Investment will be consistent with the Municipal Act requirements. So to the point of governance, the activities of One Investment are governed by the One Investment Board. That board oversees policy, finances, and administrative functions of One Investment. And it includes 9 representatives, predominantly treasury representatives. We do have some elected officials. We also do have an industry expert, a CFA charter holder. And then aside from that, we have 2 oversight bodies, an investment advisory committee, which is a panel of industry experts, CFA charter holders that help us make sure that we're kind of in line with the markets and evolving as required. And then a peer advisory committee of municipal experts. So those would be the seasoned people in the space that have either used the One Investment or are just working in the municipal sector. And then, as Roxana also noted, we have an investment advisory services function, and we have an exemption within the Ontario Securities Commission to provide investment advice. And this is done through our Chief Investment Officer, who is a CFA charter holder. We also do have a municipal finance expert as a manager at One Investment that can help with policy development, considerations about cash flow, anything. And my joke is that all of these services come free of charge. We're a not-for-profit owned by not-for-profits. We're here to help municipalities. And if they leverage the products available through One Investment, that's fantastic. So with that, we can help you build out any models you need, as we've done with Roxana. So with that, I will pass things over to Keith, our Chief Investment Officer.
Thank you very much, Jason. I just want to quickly go through a couple of slides here, and then we can get to the questions and answers. In terms of the products that we have available under the legal list, there's 4 that are listed here, and the time ranges are identified based on what your investment horizon should be to invest in them. The first is a high interest savings account. It is quite literally a bank account. So if markets go up or markets go down, your investments do not. Currently, because of the interest rate environment, it's offering interest in the range of about 5.5%, give or take. We also have the Canadian government bond portfolio, which invests in relatively short investment horizon bonds. It's got a healthy exposure to Canadian sovereign bonds, municipal bonds, and government bonds, so relatively low risk investment solution, fixed income oriented. We have another one, the Canadian corporate bond. This one has some longer maturity bonds in it, bonds that municipalities could not buy on their own because of the limitations of the Municipal Act. So the maturity profile is going to be in the range of about 6 to 7 years on average. So it is a bit more sensitive to changes in interest rates. And there is a healthy allocation to corporate credit, which typically will give slightly better returns over the long haul than sovereign bonds. And lastly, the Canadian equity portfolio. This is the one thing that we promote heavily within the offering because it gives an engine of growth for municipal investors. And the whole point of putting your money to work is for the growth that it provides. This invests in Canadian equities. It's a relatively low risk profile approach. It's been designed to have light exposure to the materials and energy sector, which tend to be highly or more volatile sectors than other parts of the market. And it is one of the most popular products we have available to investors under the legal list. In terms of legal list funds, we actually we have 6 municipalities that we've helped set up legacy funds in similar circumstances as yourself. They're typically built with what's known as an endowment model, the idea that the money is set aside for, well, in perpetuity, where there's no access to the initial capital deployed, but the income and growth on the investments can provide some level of recurring income for the town or city or municipality. The endowment model typically, because of the long investment horizon, a healthy amount of investment risk can be assumed. That is to say, short term, there may be volatility in the valuations of the fund, but over the long term, that additional risk means additional returns. So if you have a long investment horizon, you take a bit more risk and you'll get more returns, which means more income that can be drawn out of it. Some of the studies I've seen have indicated returns in the range of about 3% would be sustainable under this type of endowment model. Key point is you don't touch the capital and let it grow. The investment direction is determined by the councillor. We do support in any way possible. We provide rebalancing ranges. So when equities outperform, it gets knocked back to whatever the target range is. So the risk profile shouldn't change over time. And we'd advise when there's a need to rebalance as appropriate. But all the transactions would be taken by the treasurer and the response. We are only in an advisory position trying to help out on the side, but it's the treasurer's responsibility to implement. That did go, sorry. We have been helping out with the investment policy statement development. You've already gone through that process. We have templates and the sort. We've helped set these up with several other municipalities. We know what's required. That the IPS sets out the goals and objectives, and what we've helped put together should help to ensure that there is recurring income for the town in many years to come. With that, I think I've covered all the points here. I think it'd be more appropriate to answer any questions if there are any out there, because this is a big move for the municipality, and obviously we're here to answer any questions that's appropriate.
Thank you, Keith, for that presentation. So I would ask council if there are any questions. The first will speak specifically to One Investments, if there's any questions regarding their services. But then we will come back and deal more after that specifically with the policy as presented by our Director of Financial Services. So Councillor Hinchberger, you begin, please.
Thank you through your mayor. Thank you for coming today. You mentioned some historical numbers of 3% rate of return. That would line up with the investment asset mix as is being proposed in our policy, which is basically 50% equity, 50% fixed income. Is that correct?
Something along that line. The studies that I had suggested had included different types of assets in there. Because of the legal list, you can't invest in foreign equities. You can't invest in a certain number of investment types that would not have been included in the study. But I think that's a good guidepost. I wouldn't take it literally.
No.
But yeah, you need some level of equity to attain that. And I think that is a reasonable guidepost. I will also say that that target is nominal. So in time, I know that your policy has contemplated inflation adjustments. That's where I'd have a bit of caution. I wouldn't want to pretend that you would be able to receive 3% inflation adjusted. That could be possible. I would not want to promise that.
I understand, thanks.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, Keith. That would be walking on water if you could promise us that. Just wanted to ask a question. First of all, your presentation was excellent. I feel comfortable with releasing that 30 million plus. But the corporate bonds, what sort of ratings do you go down to? Do you have B ratings, or are they mostly double A's, A's?
We are constrained by the municipal act, and the credit quality and issuers are actually outlined in the act. And they are highest credit quality. The lowest credit quality is A minus. So investment grade in the greater investment world is triple B or above.
Good.
But we're well above that because the legal list requires higher credit quality.
Thank you, Keith.
All right, so there are three particular bullets to our motion. Are there any questions of our director regarding the intent or the purpose or the structure of the proposed legacy fund policy? Councillor Stewart, please.
As you're well aware of, I'm usually a fairly good critic on financial, but this one is a real compliment. Excellent report. I read it through, talked to Roxana. I feel so comfortable just allowing this to go through just the way it is. So congratulations, you did a great job. Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor? Councillor Kennedy, yes, okay, that's carried. Jason, Keith, thank you so much for your presentation this evening. Roxana, good work. Matters moving on. Pier Safety Ad Hoc Committee Report. And we have our staff resource, Jane Jagleski, and our committee chair, Rory Kavanagh, to present. But we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations presented in the Pier Safety Ad Hoc Committee Report, and that council approve a 2024 budget amendment up to a maximum of 92,000 to commence the recommendations identified in the report for 2024, and further that these recommendations be funded through the Life Cycle Reserve Fund. Moved by Councillors Stewart and Blackwell. Good evening, Director. Glad you're here. I believe it is and I'm glad you're here too, Councillor. Don't get me wrong. I believe we're going to begin with a presentation from the chair of the Pier Safety Ad Hoc Committee, Councillor Kavanagh. Where you go, please, sir.
Thank you very much, and apologies to the council here. A lot of this is going to be for our audience listening at home to start, and then you come in at the end here. So for everyone listening at home, my name is Rory Kavanagh, and tonight I have the privilege of presenting the findings of the Pier Safety Ad Hoc Committee. Before starting, I just want to issue a trigger warning here for anyone. We will be talking about drownings, near drownings, and loss of life in this presentation, so fair warning. I'll start with something that's not controversial, and that's everyone loves our waterfront. From fishing, swimming, boating, surfing, paddleboarding, or even just taking in the best sunsets in Ontario, local residents love our pier and beach. So too do our local businesses that also enjoy the benefits of these attractions and the tourists that bring to our town. However, unfortunately, there are also dangers associated with the hazards of Lake Huron. In short, structures like our piers focus strong currents and create conditions where water has nowhere else to go but back out along the pier. If you haven't seen this in person, it basically creates a washing machine-like effect where a swimmer trapped in this current will be tumbled around and around, unable to swim back to shore, or if they try to swim sideways like they've been taught in the past, often find themselves swimming into large waves. Unfortunately, on August 12th, 2023, at Station Beach, there was a drowning and a near drowning. And in response, Council formed the Pier Safety Ad Hoc Committee with the following mandate: to review existing data with incidents at the piers, research best and next practices, receive input from key experts, consideration for community engagements, develop concise recommendations for Council with associated costs and timelines, and present findings to Council, which is why we're here tonight. I want to take a moment just to thank all the members of our committee. Without them and all their hard work, we would not be here tonight with this input, and several of them are here tonight. So I just want to quickly read out names. I want to thank Dr. Chris Hauser, Jim Cooper, Kristen Beaton, Matt Cottrell, Rolf Jedman, Kent Patfield, David Hackney, and Ash Adams for all their hard work with the committee. I also want to acknowledge we have associated contributors who contributed some of their scientific findings and data and knowledge towards helping us make our recommendations, as well as our two staff members, our Director of Community Services and Deputy Clerk, who provided the staff support for this project. I'll begin with the main recommendation, and that is that both piers remain open year-round with appropriate signage and education. So the committee met and we heard from experts about the science behind waves and structural rip currents. We had coroner data that we used to build a profile of our drowning victims, and we examined the history of emergency response to the piers to see what time of year, for example, these incidents were occurring. When you combine these elements with the strong public opinion that the public would like the piers to remain open and accessible for recreational activities, the committee was able to come to the following recommendation: that the piers remain open year-round, with several improvements implemented and taking place. The first of which, that won't be a surprise to council, was ladders. If someone is in the water and in trouble, they need a way to get out. There are currently 37 ladders along the pier in various states of usefulness, and most prominently, the committee has determined that the ladders located towards the ends of the pier will be the highest priority to replace. If you open your report, you can see on page 12, there's sketches of the perceived or anticipated locations. Proactively, I want to answer one question that came up from several council members indirectly to me, and that was, why was there recommendations to have ladders placed on the inside of the channel, which would specifically be the calmer waters that the boats use to travel to and from the marina? And the answer from that came from our emergency responders, which is that in the conditions where people are drowning, sometimes the water is so rough that even if you can get to one of the ladders on the exterior of the pier, you won't be able to use it to get out, and you need to travel and swim around to the inside to make your extraction where the water is calmer. There are 10 ladders listed as the year one recommendation put forward as by the committee, with the option to phase this in over 1 to 4 years with council support. So if ladders are the opportunity to give someone who's drowning a chance, an opportunity to get out, it's better still that they avoid the situation entirely, and this is where signage comes in. The committee recommends that accurate signs be installed. Pages 14 to 16 of the report details the specific types of signs and where they should likely be installed to best inform people about the various risks and hazards. Education is far more beneficial than having to rescue someone after the fact. Ducking back to lifelines, for someone who is drowning, the committee also recommends increasing the number of life-saving stations per pier from 2 to 4. The goal here is to minimize the distance traveled that a potential assister could have to travel in order to get the equipment and proceed. Now, most critically, and this is very important, the goal is to help the person in the water without entering the water themselves. Looking at our coroner data since 2008, half the victims of drowning have been individuals who entered the water in an attempt to help someone else. And so these signs very clearly state, use at own risk. And the most important thing to do right there is call 911 and direct them to your system, because our emergency responders are the ones that have the tools and equipment necessary to help people. Speaking of helping others but not putting yourself at risk, the next one is a recommendation to increase the no swimming area located south of the South Pier from 100 meters to 200 meters. This comes as a result about information showing that visitors that are less familiar with Station Beach, or those that have traveled from further away, are more likely to follow human nature, enter the parking lot, follow it around to the right, park in front of the boats at the marina, and exit out right onto the beach in the most dangerous section possible. Moving things away or creating what the industry terms as design nudges or built environment to encourage people to swim further south away from the hazard of the piers will mean for a safer overall perspective. There are several recommendations included, but this was the high priority, was to increase the swimming area, but you will see several others that recommend encouraging and nudging people away from this danger zone. One of the medium priority, speaking of physical improvements, is the consideration for installing access control onto the piers. We've witnessed that even though council has ordered the gates or the piers closed for the winter months, at any given day, you can look out and see dozens of people walking the piers. Simply put, the construction fencing that's been put up there is not enough to close the gates. And at some point in the future, there will become a need to close those piers for whatever reason. We need to be able to enforce that. Much like the no swimming zone on slide 10, 2 slides previous, the committee also recommends reworking the parking lots. This is another step in the design nudge continuum where you're encouraging people to swim further to the south. In the images displayed on the screen, you can see the blue dot, which would indicate a sign, and we'll be reworking as a pilot project for 2024 with council's approval, the ability to have the parking lot serve as marina parking and directing our beach goers to the south to swim in the water on the bottom half of the picture there. So I've talked about nudging people away from the danger area. And the other thing we need to do is maybe remove things that attract them to the area. One of committee's recommendations is the beautiful pair of bright blue chairs that we have stationed. They make great Instagram and selfie photo locations, but it tends to draw people, specifically people who are traveling from out of town, to the danger area where they will pose for their wonderful photography, tag Kincardine, and then proceed to go for a swim in the absolute worst place for their safety. The recommendation is that these chairs be removed and then possibly reinstalled further south on the waterfront, again, drawing people away from the danger area. The next recommendation is an upgrade based on discoveries with the emergency responses on the North Pier, and that is we should mirror some of the improvements with the bollards on the South Pier so that when emergency vehicles need to access this area, it's free of pedestrian or residential civilian vehicles. It's a very popular spot for people to park, again, following that right-hand rule of coming in and turning around. It's convenient, it's close, but it is absolutely the worst spot for emergency vehicles when they need to access this area. Finally, another medium priority recommendation is the establishment of beach ambassadors. To be clear, this is not a program where people will be entering the water to rescue. That is for our emergency service personnel only. The idea is to have an extra set of eyes on the beach and a friendly person that can come along, educate the public, help with all the other little tasks that will need to happen, and work together as both volunteers and potentially with some of our pool staff going forward to create an environment that is safer and continuing education to the public. The proposal was for a one-year trial collaboration with community partners because we know we have people involved in our community that want to help and want to do good and are willing to give their time and energy to making our beach safer. As I flip to this last slide, you'll see that there are a lot of other potential recommendations that were made, including enhancing pier fencing, the removal of an asphalt path to the South Pier, extending the dunes. There's talk of beach access signs and boardwalk redesigns that we were supposed to hear following this that unfortunately will be delayed to another night, as well as the potential for additional staff on the waterfront to enhance capacity. But I'm going to leave this with you, and from the committee, I ask two things. The first is to authorize the funding required for the year one recommendations to get those ladders, to get those signs, to get those life-saving stations going. And the second is that I ask council to stay on top of this and follow through. The committee has provided you with a very comprehensive document. They've worked very hard to provide you with a great blueprint for water safety. But it's up to you to follow these recommendations and ensure that they come into reality. It will do our community no good if this sits ignored until the next tragic drowning. So for now, we'll open it up to questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Well presented. And if I might take the opportunity, there were a lot of community members that had expressed fear about what the outcome of this, these recommendations might be. And from my perspective, as one councillor says, I'm one of 9. I have no idea, somebody that I hear once in a while, but they are a series of logical, sensible, just things that a community might look at proactively protecting its residents and not to be not to be something to be feared, but rather to be embraced by the community. Does it cost some money? Yes, it does. Does it cost staff time? Yeah, sure does. But they are well-rounded recommendations. I'd like to offer the opportunity to our Director of Community Services. You are one of the lead staff persons here. If you have inclination to comment or wait for questions, what would you like to do, Director?
Thank you for the offer and through you. It's certainly been an interesting process, and I'd like to say it was kind of our first crack at the ad hoc committee process that for community services anyway, and I think it was quite effective in the fact that the ad hoc committee was given a mandate. They had a certain duration to complete that mandate, and they have presented to you their findings. So a very good process. All members, as Councillor Kavanagh indicated, were very involved throughout this process, and I think that was indicative to the composition that we had on the committee as well, where we had members of the public as well as key strategic members as well. So I certainly want to express my appreciation to them for their input as well, because we talk about having hard conversations, getting to good conversations, and that was certainly the process. But I think, you know, what we've presented to you this evening is achievable. Yeah, there's no doubt that capacity is an issue, but we will do our best to prioritize what is on our business plan right now in order to get as many of these items completed. I'd like to say prior to the season starting, and when I speak of the season, I refer to, I think of May 24, July 1st. We'll look at those priorities and some of those issues that we may have may be supply chain issues, and I want council to be aware of that. Some of those are beyond our controls, but we'll certainly do our best to, if approved this evening, to get those items in place for the season.
Questions from councillors? Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Okay, thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the excellent report. You mentioned about how it's our responsibility to ensure that these get implemented, and from my perspective, when they get implemented, they get maintained. So I think it'd be worth reminding everybody that there is an outstanding action from an October 11th resolution that would have staff provide a report out on essentially aquatic safety readiness by May 1st of every year. So there is a mechanism in place that can ensure that we're ready for every season. I got a couple of questions about the no swimming area. It isn't explicitly stated in the report about whether the north no swimming area north of the North Pier that was recommended in 2016 is going to continue to be a 100 meter from the pier no swimming area under this scenario. That's my first question.
Thank you for the question, and through you, there was certainly some of the discussion as well, and we recognize the fact that in its current condition of having the 100-meter no swimming jurisdiction on the north side, it would remain the same as what it currently is.
Okay, my follow-up is about identifying the no swimming area. When this actually gets put into practice, is there any provision for actually extending some of the demarcation of the no swimming area out into the water, as was done previously with, say, the safe swimming area where there were some buoys in the water? Or are we only going to rely on hazard identification at the entrance from the beach and the pier?
Thank you for the question, and through you, we identified signage for this time only on the beach access because we already have the buoys that recognize the safe swimming areas. So the no swimming areas will be identified with a series of signs, which we had long discussions about what those signs would look like and where they would be positioned. And I think you have another question, or I haven't answered your question for you.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I do really want to thank the committee for all of their time on this and coming back through some of the prior recommendations as well. I'll share that I think, I mean, the risk elimination is impossible with a natural environment like this, but I think risk awareness is certainly, and risk mitigation is something that we can strive for. So one of my questions is the commitment or prioritization of getting this done. Certainly for me, this is the highest priority, or one of the highest priorities, because of the beach is what draws people here. I want people to be safe. If there are supply chain issues, if we can achieve
these recommendations as laid out, what is the plan for the pier for the summer? Because I believe we closed it until the beginning of March.
So that would be kind of an unfair question because that would be at council's direction. And, you know, staff might come with a recommendation, but to ask that when our director maybe hasn't had opportunity to think through that, is, asking a little more than not that you don't have an idea, don't get me wrong. You likely do, but that's council's, prerogative to answer that question. So we'll move on from that question. Councillor Blackwell, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. Through you, I'll try and maybe perhaps rephrase that. With the committee's recommendation for the pier to remain open with education and improvements, with the current motion for the pier to remain closed until March 31st, is the pier committee's recommendation for the pier to remain closed until new ladders are installed, or was that part of the discussion?
Excellent question. Thank you.
I'll gladly answer that. And through you, the findings of the peer committee were not based on the recommend or the council's decision to close over the winter. And so the main finding and recommendation and strategy going forward is that the pier should be open as long as there's progress being made towards these things. Recognizing they can't happen overnight, trying to enforce something that is effectively currently unenforceable only puts us in a worse position. It's far better to begin educating and putting the signs up. And if there's a supply chain where something gets delayed, as long as everything else is moving forward, we're going to do the best we can.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And the committee, through you, of course, the committee did a good job. I'm going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate here. The South Pier is unsafe. It's always been unsafe. It's not in great shape. We tried to fix it up last term and we had a lot of holes. There's holes underneath the pier. I absolutely agree. You can't be swimming there within 200 meters. But I don't even know why we're taking a chance, because sooner or later that pier is going to need incredible. It's never been designed to be a walking pier. It's always been designed to protect the boats going in and out of the harbor. I don't know why we're wasting money right now. South Pier should be just closed. We should put a big gate up and close, try to maintain the North Pier as best we can. But there's no really valuable reason. It's just an accident waiting to happen. The drownings usually happen in that area. Why are we even encouraging people? Because we're going to start to, even with the waterfront plan, which I saw, we're going to try to keep people south of there by 200 meters. So why don't we just sort of bite the bullet and close the pier right now, spend the money on the North Pier? But I don't see the value of keeping the South Pier open. And again, in the winter time, even the North Pier, I would have that closed. I mean, you get ice on that thing. I mean, those things aren't really designed to be a walking pier. They're designed to really protect the boats going in and out of the harbor. So I might even make a friendly amendment that, you know, to change this, that we close the South Pier permanently. Thank you.
I did not hear a motion, so we don't need a seconder. So if you would like, if you would like to respond to that, Chair or Director. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, Councillor Stewart raises a very valuable point that was beyond the scope of the peer committee, which is going forward in the future, there's a very real fact that this asset will need significant funding if it's going to continue to function as a pedestrian traveling pathway. However, when the pier looked at the time of year the incidents happen, I think there was one listed that occurred in since 2008 that occurred outside of summer months. And even that was right on the shoulder season. People are generally pretty good about walking on the pier when it's safe and unsafe. But there is a consideration with the South Pier that it's not in great shape. But while it's still safe to be used for pedestrians, our public and our residents would like to be able to continue to use it for all the recreational activities. And as long as the ladders are there and the signage is there and the life-saving stations are there, that's something that I think that a future council could decide upon when it's no longer safe. But as it is, it's currently safe to walk on.
And if I may add, even if it is closed, Counselor, which I do or don't disagree with at this point, to remove any option for any swimmer who has ended up there because of whatever reason. Like there's still a need to provide a means to get out of the water by the South Pier. So, Counselor Kavanaugh.
Sorry, and I think that hits upon the logical juxtaposition that the committee struggled with, and it comes to council is we don't want people swimming in the area, but by adding the ladders in, we're in fact making it easier for people to enter the water there. At the end of the day, you have to do what you can for harm mitigation to keep people as safe as they can.
Counselor Hinchberger and then Stewart again, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I gotta clean up the question I started earlier to the Director of Community Services. The marking of the no swimming area, not just along the beach, but for some distance into the water. You made reference to the safe swimming area, but the safe swimming area as it existed in 2023 only had buoys that went across, never actually intersected with anything. So I'll leave that as a comment. Then my question actually is about piggybacking on Councillor Blackwell's concerns about, what we might implement. I understand there will be different lead times and target completions and capabilities to achieve them. Do we have some assurance that at a minimum signage, I can understand ladders being a longer lead time sort of thing, but that signage is something that not only is listed as a high priority thing, but is probably one of the, if not the high priority item that could be completed most quickly?
Thank you, and through you, yes, certainly staff have met to determine what are some of the really low-hanging fruits that are still high priority items in the recommendations, and certainly, yes, signage is, those are easy wins that we've already had these conversations with our supplier already. They're aware that there's potential orders coming in. They've already tentatively designed some of the signs for us. So those are easy wins. But I do want to, caution or share with council that we do have a business plan, community services, which hopefully will be approved shortly. And it will impact some of that business plan, some of those items that we had planned to do this spring. It will push it out somewhat, and it may be reflective in some carryovers. And I only share that with council as a heads up, because this is obviously some additional work that we had not planned to do when we prepared the budget.
Counselor Stewart.
Thank you, and through you, that's one of the things I was going to say. It's unfortunate because we just approved the budget last month, so we have to be careful that all of a sudden I understand this thing, but even our treasurer is probably going, it's only been 2 or 3 weeks, so you have to be careful. So I hope these things aren't going to come up every month. Another thing is I just wanted to correct something, because from my understanding, and I think you mentioned in your report, Councillor, that the firefighters are not allowed in Lake Huron. They basically can rescue from the shore, and that's it. They're not allowed in the water. That's the Canadian Coast Guard responsibility, or the police. So I just wanted to correct that. We don't expect the firefighters to be out in the water, but they can do anything from the shore out. Thank you.
Comment?
Thank you through the
That's a
chair.
question.
Yeah, I
I'm-
don't have the expertise to answer that. However, we do have our
We-
deputy chief here who
we
might
do-
be willing to comment on that.
We do have the resources here to answer that question. I think I see a bus coming here just for a minute. So.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so you're, Councillor Stewart, you're partially correct. We do land-based water rescue. However, the techniques that we use do allow us to enter the water, and we can work off of a fixed structure. So we actually have worked at some rescues off the OPP boat. So we can work still via entering the water from a fixed structure that's on the water, if that makes sense. We don't go below surface, so we're only surface on the top of the water. And typically we're trying to be land-based, and we're approximately roughly 300 feet is our rope length. But there are currently new NFPA legislation that we're currently training, which allows us to work even tether-free, which means that we can go beyond that scope if the conditions are correct. So for example, we went to a water rescue last year for a kayaker who was out quite a distance, and we used our boat that we have, our inflatable raft, and we paddled out to them. And then at that time, the OPP boat showed up, and we were able to work with them to bring the patient back to the shore. So there isn't a fixed distance from the shores, the short answer.
Thank you. I'm very interested. If you can keep me informed about that, because, you know, I've been around the lake a long time, and it's a very dangerous place. And I thought it was the Canadian Coast Guard responsibility 100% and the police. So I just want to make sure that I'm well informed. So if you keep me informed in the council, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I will add one thing there, if it's okay, just with regards to the Coast Guard and OPP, and Officer Hackney here could answer that better. But you're correct, it is a Coast Guard jurisdiction. So when we're there, we're working under the Coast Guard and or the OPP once it's beyond the shoreline.
You might remember recently, Mayor Charbonneau from Saugeen Shores was advocating for expanded services from the Coast Guard in that regard as well. So we have the motion before us. Approve the recommendations. We've acknowledged the phased approach. We've acknowledged the supply chain issues that we might face, and our director's plan to address that. Budget amount through the life cycle reserve. All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? Councillor Kennedy, I'm sorry, I can't see it. Did you have your hand up for that? Very good, okay. And that motion carried. So once again, we extend our thanks to our Director of Community Services and our Peer Safety Ad Hoc Committee. Good work, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Well done.
Moving along, 2024 compliance with Regulation 28409 Financial Services. We need a mover and seconder. The council adopt a compliance report for expenses excluded from the 2024 budget outlined in Report Financial Services 2024-06 as a requirement of Ontario Regulation 28409 passed under the Municipal Act. Moved by councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. All in favor? That's carried. Sorry, I don't think there was any questions, was there?
Yeah.
No.
That's boilerplate stuff.
Electronic signatures policy. Need a mover and seconder that council approve the updated electronic signatures policy and repeal policy GG 317. Electronic signatures moved by councillors Blackwell and Hinchberger. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Section 270 policy update, public notice. Need a mover and seconder that bylaw number 2020-040 being a bylaw to establish notice of provisions for the municipality of Kincardine be repealed. And further, that council approve and adopt by bylaw the draft public notice policy as presented, moved by councillors Prenger and Deputy Mayor Clark. Discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Property Standards Committee. We need a mover and seconder that the terms of reference for Property Standards Committee be approved as presented, and further that councillors A, B, and C be appointed to the Property Standards Committee. Moved by councillor Stewart and Hinchberger, and now the question is who are councillors A, B, and C? Do we have any volunteers? Councillor Stewart, councillor Hinchberger.
I like to be B, please.
You like? I'm number 2. Any other councillors like to? Are you nodding, Councillor Blackwell? No, I'm sorry for Councillor Steinhoff-Gray. That would be beyond her capacity. She is get a conversation. She is swamped. I will offer my name on that. Not that I want to be, but I will offer my name on that. So. It was moved by Councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. All in favor? That's carried. Notice of motion, on their consideration of bylaws. 2024 budget bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the 2024 budget bylaw be deemed to be read first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2024-030, moved by Councillors Blackwell and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? Or any discussion? All in favor? Cheesy Monkey Agreement, mover and seconder that the Cheesy Monkey Agreement bylaw be deemed to be read first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2024-031, moved by Councillors Kavanaugh and Stewart. Any discussion? She was at the job fair tonight. Excellent. All in favor? Carried. Pardon me? She had no fries. Motion to pass bylaws. So we need a mover and seconder that the following bylaws are hereby read first, second, third time, finally passed today. Electronic signatures policy bylaw, public notice policy bylaw, property standards term of reference bylaw, council committee appointment bylaw. So the 3 and 4, 1 is the bylaw and 4 is the appointments to the, yes. A, B, and C, moved by Councillors Hinchberger and Kavanaugh. All in favor? That's carried. So we have the consent agenda. Items listed under this agenda are routine in nature and are enacted in one motion as a matter arising, unless any council member has an item which they would like to have withdrawn for consideration either this evening briefly or a further report at a future date. Any questions that you would like to raise? Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I just have two things that I want to note. Neither is for pulling tonight, but just kind of commenting on. One is I will be hopefully bringing back a resolution very similar to the one CJ, similar to Prince Edward counties, with local information provided by the United Way, calling on the province to increase Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program base funding. Also, there was a motion from the Township of Perry, specifically on the Blue Box transition. I was speaking recently with the Deputy Mayor of Aaron Eldersley, and they had received a presentation on that transition. I'm wondering if we can have something as well, having recently spoke with the BIA about some of the possible changes that might be on the horizon for businesses, churches, daycares, those kind of things that are with this transition.
I'm going to direct this to Councillor Kennedy and then back through our CAO. Councillor Kennedy, any comments regarding that resolution regarding the amending the Blue Box regulations?
Yeah, we had a meeting, Basra, today with all the municipalities plus staff. And we're going through some things right now that I'm sure I could get them, in the next 2 months to come and make a presentation. But our date is going to be January 1st, 2026. When everything will be completely turned over. But I'm sure that Vince would come and talk about the transition. And there's a couple of steps we have to take here in the next couple of months that we probably want to take before he made one. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Yep. So just as a refresher, the province has made this change to producer responsibility. We've seen it in a couple of areas. So you'll recall that batteries are no longer something that we collect. That's something that now is the responsibility of the producers. So that's why you see those boxes at stores where you can buy batteries, etc. So the intent of the move is that for household recycling, the pickup will be done through the producer, and they are contracting this out across the province in various stages. My understanding is Basra will be putting together a proposal to submit to see if they're selected as the supplier for the recycling pickup for household. But you're absolutely correct. This is household pickup. It does not include ICI, so institutional commercial industrial. So if there's any current, like if the municipality is picking up recycling for those types of property owners, that's not something that will be transitioned to the producer. So there's the potential, if council wants to increase services beyond what the producer will be responsible for, there's a potential new cost, in part because previously we would have been receiving, or we have been receiving funding for the Blue Box program at approximately 50% of the cost. And if we're going to provide this for pickup to those other types of users, there will not be any support for that. The only other thing I would note is for us, Basra is also the firm responsible for collecting our household waste. And that is not the case for all of the municipalities that currently have Basra collecting their recycling. So if for some reason they were not successful with respect to getting a contract for the recycling pickup, then there will also be potentially something for us to consider in terms of household waste pickup in the future.
Any other items from the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated March 6, 2024, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Stewart. All in favor? And that's carried. Member of Council General Announcements. Deputy Mayor Clark, how be you begin this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I have no announcements this evening.
Councillor Kavanaugh?
Thank you very much. I have a couple announcements to bring forward. The first that is in Kincardine, if you're at the Davidson Center, this coming Friday night at 6 p.m., the Kincardine Skating Club is putting on their gala. So come on out if you want to see some of the cutest little kids skating around the ice. The other exciting news I have is March break is coming up, and for all those families, I wanted to sort of plug up the Bruce County Public Library, whose theme for March break this year is going to be just beach. So if you're looking for something to keep your kids occupied for March break, head on down to your local library. The program is running across all 17 branches.
Councillor Kennedy?
Well, our tickets are out for Rock with Your Docs, our hospital fundraiser. Just so happens that Jen Lowry has some. And anyways, they're going to be out. A lot of people selling them. So June 21st, mark it in your calendar. Thanks.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I have two quick announcements before I get into one of the ones I'm excited about. The first is that I feel the deputy mayor is being very humble. For those who don't know, she is a keynote speaker tomorrow night at the International Women's Day event happening in Chesley. So I am very excited to be attending and hearing her talking about women's empowerment through economic, I'm not sure what the word is, economic participation. The other is, perhaps our Director of Community Services can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm getting up tomorrow bright and early to register for summer camp. Yes, okay. I cannot sleep in. It is like top of the list. The other thing that I did really want to mention is a couple weeks ago, our Strategic Initiatives Department has launched the campaign called the Love It campaign. One of the things I do in my day-to-day work is work with people on planning for the future. And when we do that, we start with strengths. We start with the things that make them unique and special, and the things that really make them who they are. And I really love this campaign for those same reasons. I think there's always an opportunity to celebrate and really highlight what makes living here so wonderful. And so through various locations throughout the municipality and online, people have been sending in things that they love about the community. And this is all going to help us when we form and work towards our strategic planning. So the first one that has been sent in was by Deborah Clark, and it says that the public free access to use the indoor walking track at the Davidson Center is something that she loves. Her 85-year-old mother was visiting for the weekend to watch hockey games and enjoyed walking the track between games with her great-granddaughter. They love the family-friendly facility. So I just think these are wonderful. And I think if I'm not wrong, that a couple other folks around the table might have one that they'd like to share as well.
Councillor Stewart, announcements or otherwise?
Yeah, I have a couple of announcements. First of all, I'd like to thank the people who participated in Winterfest over in Tiverton. I hear it was snowing once again and everything. Good news is that the Tiverton Lions Club has decided to take it on. So there'll be a Winterfest next year, and we'll give you the details later. And just a sort of promotion that the Tiverton Lions once again is having Easter bunnies for $5, and the proceeds go to the guide dogs and the new build down in Oakville. So if you know a bunny, if you want a bunny, just go contact the Lion. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger?
Thank you. I'd like to quickly thank anyone who's tried to contact me in the last 2 weeks or so for their patience. I've been uncharacteristically sick and totally out of commission, so I'm just getting through a backlog right now. So thank you for waiting on my response. And I also have a what do you love about your town response to share. Where is it? Here it is. So Judy Brown shared that she loves that the Kincardine Emergency Department is open. Woohoo!
Councillor Inchberger?
Thank you through you, Mayor. I'd like to say something about International Women's Day. There's two main bodies that I'm involved in. One is the council here and the other is in the Kincardine BIA. And you would have to be completely blind not to be impressed by the level of leadership and initiative and caring about our community that's exhibited by both the women that are on this council and the BIA. And if I could be so bold as to say something to men, I think you're in danger of being left behind, because I think there's clear evidence that there's more leadership in this community that's coming from the female ranks than anyone else. As far as what we love about Kincardine, Sloan Benici, age 11, says that she loves the people and the scenery, and I completely agree with that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, please.
I have two, what I love about the community, or love it notes that I thought we were doing after. Can I do that now? Thank you. I have Michelle Keeble, who has stated, "We have made Kincardine an annual summer getaway for the last 10 years. You can see my oldest son still going to the park. Love the beach, restaurants, and visiting friends in town." The next one is I've got two.
The next one is Elle Campbell. Hi, Elle. This is Lyra's dad. I wanted to say that your picture of a lighthouse is incredible. It is so good. Make sure your parents give you yummy treats because your drawing is next level. Thank you.
Okay.
No, it's still my turn. Peggy Walter wrote that the people are what make Kincardine. They're so friendly, helpful, and love to talk to you about Kincardine and its history. The small town vibe is so peaceful and relaxing. I love the events and activities too. Always something to see and do. And of course, beautiful Lake Huron and its beaches. It's my happy place, with 4 exclamation marks. Thank you, Peggy.
Just a minute, it's my turn. No, that's, no, it's not. Go ahead. Deputy.
We have Janet Heater. "I love the Davidson Center and all it has to offer, especially the pool and instructors. Always feel welcome, and of course, the pipe band since 1963, and the boardwalk. Oh, and the trails and. Thank you."
I also have a couple of submissions, one from Beckett Evans, who's 9 years old. "There are so many amazing and kind people in our community, and we are lucky to have a beautiful beach and great shops downtown. And don't forget our cool and unique mascot, Blinky." And from Michelle Lapointe, "Emergency medical transportation is available when needed." Absolutely. So I received some direction from our manager of strategic initiatives to make a random draw. And after I had done the random draw, seriously, there was a random draw done. There, 3 of the submissions from this evening had been the winning tickets. So we have some municipal bling for Michelle Keeble, for Peggy Walter, and for Janet Heiter. So thank you to all who submitted. I saw the number of entries that our manager has. We will be reading these for a long time, and the winners of bling will be announced from time to time. So thank you very much. Just one final announcement for me. Our municipal job fair, our community job fair is still on at the Davidson Center until 7 o'clock. There had been about 75 people through in the first half hour. Excellent turnout. 35 some odd businesses there for your consideration. You have any comments, announcements, CAO?
I have an announcement, and it's from Kincardine Fire and Emergency Services and Emergency Management, who were participants, as I gather some of you were as well, in the coldest night of the year. So the second time this event was held in February on the 24th with 93 walkers, 22 teams, and 25 volunteers that raised over $22,000, hosted by United Way, Bruce and Gray, and the funds go to local charities serving people experiencing hurt, hunger, and homelessness. The Kincardine Fire and Emergency Services and Emergency Management plan to attend next year as well if you want to jump in with their team.
Luckily, it was not that cold. It was a great night. So we need a mover and seconder that the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine, March 6, 2024, to be deemed to be read first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2024-36, moved by Councilors Kavanaugh and Hinchberger. All in favor? Council adjourn at 6:13, moved by Councilors Stewart and Blackwell. All in favor? Thank you, Council. The important issues discussed again tonight. Thank you.